You had to be good at so many different things if you were a superhero back then. I mean, you might have superpowers, but if you couldn't sew, you were toast.
Yeah. Sewing is like almost like more important than the superpowers. So yeah, I kind of like that.
I'm joined by Comic Collector Geek, and he's going to give us his top 5 reasons for collecting Golden Age comics. Hi, I'm Keston, and this is the second of a 2-part series. I'm hosting a Comic Collector Geek, also known as CCG, on my channel. On the other, he's hosting me. We're each giving our top 5 reasons for collecting Golden Age comics. Let me say a few words about CCG. He is prolific. In 2021, he's been posting a video every single day on comic books. And I'm so impressed by both the breadth and depth. He's been posting on everything from modern books all the way to Golden Age books. And CCG, I haven't seen all of your videos, but recently they've been a lot more about Golden Age, which I appreciate because that's my favorite. I've also appreciated how much historical context that you give to comic books too. Without further ado, let's get to it. I want to hear your top 5 reasons for collecting Golden Age comic books.
The reason actually I started collecting Golden Age was the dawn of the superheroes. Sort of like I'm a big Wonder Woman fan. So I collect based on TV shows or movies that I watch a lot of the time. So it's kind of weird. Like it's probably the worst way to collect because usually if the movies come out, that's the worst time to buy. So don't use my method. I mainly got into Wonder Woman. So, I looked at where was their first appearance, and it's in the Golden Age. And a lot of the characters that I liked just happen to have Golden Age roots. So I'll show you the comic that I got. That was the first Wonder Woman one that I picked up was this one, which is All-Star 8. This is Wonder Woman's first appearance. And it was actually one that my local comic book shop, he had it about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were sort of talking about it. And I was like, I'm really interested in that book. And he's, it's like, it's like 40,000. He'd make up some crazy number. And I'd be like, okay, yeah. And then I'd kind of talk him down over like a period of several years. And I got him down to like about 20. So Canadian, which is about $2 US. So I was just joking. I always joke about how bad the Canadian dollar is. So yeah, it was a pretty good deal. I got it graded as a 2.5. So that's it, Blue Label, I should say.
Yeah. So, by the way, I just want to point out to the folks watching that this is unusual. Most folks don't start off by getting the biggest Golden Age key of a particular superhero as their first comic book in the series. Thank you for sharing. This is a wonderful book. I've tried to get that book a couple of times. I've never been able to grab it. So congratulations on that great book.
So yeah, I'm weird. I go for the hardest books first, and then I go for the easier ones later. So this is the way I did it. I collected the wrong way. So just the way I do it. So I'm kind of weird. And then I had to get, Wonder Woman #1 as well. Sort of in a reasonably high grade. So, it's quite nice. Just collecting Wonder Woman was what got me into the Golden Age. And I really liked the style of the Golden Age, that whole, the superheroes got me in. And, I started, getting into like Captain Marvel was the other Golden Age one that I collected. So there's like the first Mary Marvel, I always like that whole idea of first appearances. And that's really why the Golden Age is such a key, because it's where all these superheroes kind of made their origins, right? It was in the Golden Age. This is the time period where they first were written about. And the thing, actually, going back to Wonder Woman #1 in a way, this scene, I'm going to show it again. This scene is like almost, it looks like it came right from the movie. If you watch the first Wonder Woman movie, which was the better of the two, this scene was in the movie where she's kind of going across that no man's land. The story is amazingly similar in this book to the story that's in the movie. They didn't really take that much liberties with it. So I was kind of impressed by that. So not only were the origins of the heroes from that Golden Age, but a lot of the stories that we love today were first written back then too. So I kind of love that whole historical element to comics. Some of the other heroes that I sort of got into certain heroes because I, started looking into the Golden Age. And then so I got things like sort of more abstract, like obscure. The problem with Golden Age is it's really hard to get high grades, and high grades are really expensive. But so this is Phantom Stranger, first appearance of Phantom Stranger, which is kind of cool. And then I actually liked the cheesiness a little. I shouldn't call it cheesy, but the cheesiness of the Golden Age. Like if you look at the original Flash, he's got this silly worker's helmet on and it's got little wings. I kind of like that. I like kind of. So I like that kind of rawness of the Golden Age with their superheroes. The superheroes aren't as fleshed out as they are nowadays. Look like some guy that just decided I'm going to be a superhero today. I wish I had it. I actually have it on order, like an early, more fun comics with Spectre.
Oh yeah.
I really like Spectre. His origin was that he basically sewed his own suit. So the first comic with him, he becomes a Spectre, but he doesn't have his suit until the second, more fun 53, which is his second appearance. But he actually sews his suit. He goes home and on his little sewing machine is sewing his suit. I think that's just so funny. That's such a classic trope of superheroes, that they make their own costumes, and it's like this cheesy green and gray suit.
You had to be good at so many different things if you were a superhero back then. I mean, you might have superpowers, but if you couldn't sew, you were toast.
Yeah. Sewing is almost more important than the superpowers. So I kind of like that. Believe it or not, the very first thing I collected from the Golden Age was horror. I didn't have a huge collection because I couldn't afford it. But the first thing that I actually thought about from the Golden Age was horror comics. So I loved the movie Tales of the Crypt. Mm-hmm. So I really liked, the Crypt Keeper. I'll show you the one that was my very first Golden Age comic. So this is one of the ones that I really love. It's just a great cover. Yeah. But this is my first Golden Age comic. Wow. And I paid $20.
A little bit cheaper than your All-Star 8.
Yeah, a little cheaper than my All-Star 8. I should have bought some of the other ones this guy had. He had a whole collection of the Vault of Horror and Tales of the Crypt and stuff. But this was the only one in my price range. So I was like a poor student. This is early 90s that I picked this book up. I just felt so happy to have a Golden Age horror book. I really liked the Crypt Keeper. I like that whole idea of the narrator who's kind of creepy and at the same time silly. So horror was not it could be fun, which was kind of interesting to me. He was kind of narrating these kind of interesting stories. And it's really the story ideas that I fall in love with, that I don't really care if the production is necessarily the best. I actually I can focus really on the story. I just love the stories. And the Golden Age was kind of the key time for horror and sci-fi because they didn't have all the restrictions that we have now with, what you can put into a comic. So, you see this one, actually the first one I got, it's he's looks like he's getting liquefied or something. It's pretty crazy. They really got into their skull covers, this whole melted skull kind of look. This is kind of a famous one. I wish I had a higher grade of this. That's one thing I liked about the horror. They could actually tell the stories that they wanted to tell, and they could do the artwork the way that they wanted to do the artwork. Yeah, so my wife just coming in will... Okay, go. My wife just has no concept of hey, I'm recording a video.
On the most important topics here.
I really liked Vampirella. Mm-hmm. And Vampirella is a Silver Age character. And I started collecting her, and then she came from this one company called Warren Publishing. Mm-hmm. And Warren Publishing produced a lot of horror stuff. They had creepy, eerie, famous monsters, and a lot of actually the guy that created Famous Monsters was Forrest J. Ackerman and James Warren. It was Forrest J. Ackerman that coined the term sci-fi Just say
Okay.
that's some trivia that most people don't know. Their magazines, I should say, could get around the Comic Code Authority. Okay, so this is Silver Age time period, but they were producing Golden Age style horror. And they were able to get a lot of these brilliant artists that had sort of lost their footing from the Golden Age to be in their magazines. So I started learning about Golden Age horror through Silver Age and through all these kind of comics, magazines that came out during the 60s.
Yeah, Alan, just to point out, isn't that kind of strange? So the point of the Comic Book Authority, the Comic Code, was so these violent images or disturbing images wouldn't be shown to kids. But it was like, if you just switch the format up a little bit and made it a magazine, you could still do that. It's fine. Yeah, I just think that's funny.
So one of the things that Wortham and the Comic Code Authority never seemed to understand is the comics were not really being only read by children. That's a modern concept. Like if you go to Japan or Korea or anywhere in Asia, everybody reads manga. Everybody reads those books. And that's how it was in the Golden Age. Everybody read comics. It was destroying the publishing industry because everyone was reading comics. It's only nowadays that we associate comics to children, because at the time, once the Comic Code Authority came into play, it became sort of not so interesting for adults. The quality of the content became more childlike in terms of the way that they were writing and even the artwork. So it became that they sort of forced it to actually be more targeted towards children after the Comic Code than before it was. What they should have done is just said, oh, this comic is meant for a certain age, and maybe that would have been better. Yeah. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm gonna just show some of the sci-fi ones that I have.
Right.
You weren't allowed to use the word weird after the Comic Code Authority. And it's almost like the people that kind of got in charge of the Comic Code Authority were really trying to punish EC Comics, even though it was EC that kind of started the process of the Comic Code Authority. The next big reason for why I got into the Golden Age is I like women. At the end of the day, and I really liked Golden Age good girl art. My collecting kind of goes through these weird little phases. So I went through horror, and then I went into like superheroes. I was a product of the 90s comic collecting. Like if you look at 90s comic collecting, it is like Vampirella, Lady Death, all these kind of like good bad girls, I guess, like they're sort of sexy, kind of campy girls. I'm sort of a product of that collecting time, So I was like getting into where is the, the best of that kind of style of art. And really it's the Golden Age. It's the Jungle comics. It's the Schomburg art, the Matt Baker art, the Phantom Lady stuff, This cover that started the whole process. This was the first sort of good girl art that I picked up.
Sure.
I love this kind of innuendo cover. This is Bob Montana. Just a really great cover. And I saw this, I actually, I was buying like a superhero comics off of Heritage. And then this one came up and, I was like, oh, that's a really cool cover. I really like that cover. I hope, it's just an Archie though. It's not going to go for much. It's like,
oh yeah, that's an expensive book. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, what? I was like, why is it so expensive? And it's really just because of the cover.
Right.
It's just it's considered one of the best Archie covers. And so this was the first one that I got, strangely. As I said, I always go for the hardest ones first. If you look behind me, you can see a lot of good girl art. I'm going to grab.
You plucked that exciting 66 too?
66?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's an amazing cover.
You have a much better version of this, but this one actually it presents really well.
Yeah.
It's just not a high grade. I think the only reason it's a sort of a lower grade is this one corner. It's sort of a like all dirty or something messed up corner. But it presents really, really well, other than that one corner.
Yeah, for that particular book, the whites are often soiled So it looks a lot darker, but the white background there looks like really nice. That's a nice copy.
Yeah, I think it could. I believe that it could use like a clean and press, and it'd probably be even more, vibrant. But it's a really nice copy of it, I guess. Cool. I've seen yours. Yours is like a 9 or something like this of this issue.
Well, I'm a little embarrassed to say, but I actually have 3 copies that are nice. I've got an 8.0. I've got a 9.2 that's the Okajima copy that you've not seen. And I also have a 9.6 as well. So that's my highest.
9.6. See, that's like probably people watching this don't realize how insane that is. It's a great cover, but that's insane just because a 9.6 is usually not heard of from the Golden Age. Like pretty much there's not that many comics that are even have a 9.6 to show. I'll show you some more, just one more Good Girl one. I'm not sure. Do you have this one?
I don't. I wish I did. That's a great cover.
It's like, I really like this character, not just the cover, but I love this character. She has like a whole bunch of different outfits. I actually have I'm trying to get a complete collection of her covers just because I really like, this is Miss Mask for anyone that doesn't know. This is Schomburg art, right? But in America's Best Comics, she's like on the covers from like the 20s of that series. And just, I really love the style, like the sort of 40s sort of, the hair kind of like reminds me of Betty Page a little bit. The next reason why I really got into collecting is I kind of want to justify all the money that I'm spending on this. And I want to say that, it's because I invest. It's not that I just love comics and I'm buying them because I love comics. It's really because of an investment. Like the last 2 years of comic collecting is not normal. It's just not the way comics are. Usually comics, there's like a slow increase in value, but we don't have these kind of crazy markets that we have right now. It's almost like the market was so depressed for such a long time that all of a sudden there's a huge price correction that's going on right now. And it's also a lot of people that are switching, like maybe something with the whole lockdown situation. People are more, they kind of want to collect some of their nostalgia from the past, and something changed, and the last 2 years were really crazy in terms of pricing.
Oh yeah.
So the investment side of it looks amazing. You pretty much, you buy whatever silly comic comes out and you could say, I made money. Traditionally that's not the case. And you'd have almost like the way the stock market is. You'd have like the hot stocks, which kind of go up and down all over the place, which is the modern comics. And then you would have like the blue chips that are kind of like these things that just don't go down in value. They just gradually make more money each year. And I kind of see the Golden Age comics as being like that. That side of it, you can sort of say, okay, if I buy these key comics from the past, like my All-Stars 8 or whatever it is, those are good investments because they might not go up huge amounts in one particular year, but over time, they'll be a solid investment. Well, except for these last 2 years where there has been this correction.
Correction in a positive way, right? Like a correction.
Yeah, crazy in a positive way. A lot of collectors sort of don't realize how affordable the Golden Age is because it was a sort of a slow, steady increase. With the modern comics really becoming kind of crazy, like a Miles Morales, Ultimate Fallout 4. It goes for anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000, and maybe I've seen it as high as 5 for like some rare variant. That with that same money, you could get a pretty nice Golden Age comic.
Sure.
So what's happening is as I see these modern ones kind of going up into that realm of the Golden Age pricing, people are going to go and say, well, hey, why don't I just get the original first appearance of Wonder Woman or whatever character it is? I think there is going to be kind of a spike that we see in the Golden Age. So right now, some of them are kind of heating up. like the Matt Baker stuff. Like it seems to be very artist driven. The Schomburgs, the LB Cole stuff,
Sure.
all of that is kind of going up right now. But I really do think that as people start exploring the golden age, just like I did, I think there will be a huge potential for a lot of these books to go up. I was a big, like a promoter of Captain Marvel as an investment.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those comics that was huge in the golden age, really been just resuscitated with this recent movie, a few years ago with Captain Marvel. And once they make another movie, well, then it becomes an established character, and people will start saying, hey, I got to pick up those golden age books, because there was no silver age Captain Marvel. There's no,
right.
It's really a golden age character that's sort of stuck in the golden age.
So if I would interject there too, and I believe you brought this up in one of your videos, something that many viewers may not realize was just how popular Captain Marvel was, that he was the most popular superhero in all the 1940s, which was the peak of superheroes. And he even outsold Superman, and Batman.
It was huge. And it's sad. It's sad that it sort of disappeared. And the stories in it are pretty great. Actually, they're fun. I really enjoy Captain Marvel. So Captain Marvel, which is Shazam for younger generations, right? So that's sort of the investment side of it. That I sort of found that it's a really great opportunity, because other things are spiking, and yet the golden age has kind of consistently moved up. So you get the stability of the golden age, and if you buy now, you can probably get also the spike of the modern age influencing the golden age. So I think there's a huge opportunity there, and that just justifies why I spend so much money on buying these things.
Yeah, you gotta have some
early investment, honey. My wife that doesn't respect it. So I always try to find out the history behind things, and I always like what really made the golden age, what really made the silver age, what really made the bronze age. I really got into that whole history about the seduction of the innocent. So my collecting gets very influenced by what I'm learning or what I'm reading. I got really into that whole comic code authority and the impact it had on comics. Hard to imagine the impact that one thing had, on a whole industry. Before comic code authority, there was like thousands of publishers. Like I think they figure there was about 3,000 publishers in the US. And then after the authority got into play, there was maybe about 200 to 300. It just killed the industry overnight.
Right.
And it's sad. You get all this artistic freedom. Like they were making crazy things. Like I'm gonna show some of the SOTI, my SOTI collection. Have to kind of grab it and bring it over.
Sure.
We got the Murder Incorporated. He really hated the crime comics. Wortham, who wrote the Seduction of the Innocent, really hated the crime ones. This is the one I really like. I like these ones with a little bit of damsel in distress. He's shooting the police through the door and stuff. And his girlfriend's like, what the heck? I just love these covers. This kind of scene you'd never see it after the golden age ended, where they had sort of real violence and real action happening on the cover of comics. Just one you showed earlier to me, the crime.
Hold on a second. Let's see if I can get this show it did not blur. But we'll be crime suspense stories, twinsies here.
Yeah, my copy is like almost a dog's breakfast. But this is actually not one from the SOTI collection, but it's one that I consider the one that brought on the whole comic code authority. It's such a cool cover. It's very extreme. The funny thing was they originally were going to do this in red, right? This is blood, right? This is, but why is it black? They did try to, have some kind of restraints. And they also did the same with the head, where it could be another person over here, right? just the way that they framed it was so brilliant. You know, before you had that kind of artistic freedom where they could kind of do some crazy stuff. You know, and that's why I got into collecting the SOTI collection. It's called like Seduction of Innocent, abbreviates to SOTI. I really love some of the covers, like, and some of the stories, like from that era. So this is like one of those double decapitation. Like they, you know, one of the things that they really hated, the Comic Code Authority, is like decapitation. You know, yeah. Like you can see that theme. That's actually not the reason why this one was censored, or well, would have been censored, I should
Interesting.
say. The reason this one was mentioned in the Seduction of the Innocent was inside there's a baseball game being played. And this is the one where they're wearing, like, you know, a chest plate that's somebody else's chest.
Oh, God.
They're throwing a head and stuff like that. It's like body parts being used, like an arm is like a bat and stuff like that. It's pretty gruesome. We think of the 40s as being like much more innocent time and much more, you know, conservative time, right? But they were putting things as pretty far out there, you know, it's pretty extreme.
Was it like the late 40s and early 50s that horror genre really took hold,
yeah,
right?
Really,
it wasn't the early 40s as much.
Yeah, I mean, I always loved the story behind Bill Gaines.
Yeah.
You know, his father was like producing like comics that were like, you know, like real stories of the Bible and stuff like that. And he was like really, really, you know, trying to create these pure books for kids. And then he had an accident where he died in a boating accident. And then his son gets the family business. He doesn't know anything about comics. So he just produces what he thinks will sell. And he produces these kind of really extreme comics where he said, hey, artists, do whatever you want. Go out and make the coolest thing ever. And they did. And it was really EC that was like changing the game in terms of like, you know, putting out more extreme kind of content.
I love that cover. It's just so wild. It gets me thinking, like, did they have to do so many executions that just like one axe blade wasn't enough? We had to have two. Then I'm also thinking, or the guy just like doubled everything. Like he was in a rock band when you have one of those like double guitars.
yeah, it's like a double guitar kind of thing. Yeah, it's crazy. Maybe I don't know how effective this would be, right? But it looks cool.
Yeah.
So those are kind of my reasons. Just to reiterate, like it's kind of the time of the superheroes. You know, a lot of the origins came from the Golden Age. It's also the dawn of, like, just as you saw, like sci-fi and horror was really at its peak during the Golden Age. And I like a lot of the good girl art that came from the Golden Age.
Sure.
And that's really one of the big things that I like now. That I really collect right now from the Golden Age is the good girl art. And to justify all this, I say it's a good investment, and it is. So if you're trying to just, you know, maybe switch from stocks or something else, and you want to get into something that's going to hold value over time, comics, and especially Golden Age comics, have that kind of established value that I think will endure, especially as the younger collectors from now start going back and saying, hey, I should probably pick up some of these Golden Age books as well. And you'll see probably money kind of flowing backwards in time in terms of what people are picking up. I think that'll happen. The other thing is the history of it, and that whole Comic Code Authority that really ended the Golden Age, and getting a sense of that history of the Comic Code Authority, and that whole idea of collecting the things that were taboo, after the Comic Code Authority got into play. And I kind of like finding those taboo comics of the past. So those are my 5 reasons. The next part of this video, we'll do your 5 reasons, and we'll have that on my channel. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, sounds great. Comic Collector Geek, thanks so much for joining me. A real pleasure. You certainly helped validate my own crazy expenditures on comic books, so I appreciate that. And yeah, we'll see you over at your channel. And by the way, go to the description box. I've got the link to CCG's channel. Check him out. He's got a lot of great material. All right, we'll see you over at his channel soon.